Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know. I'm Steve Delasan, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Neil Malvone, the CEO and founder of Cutting Edge Sports Management. Neil, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you and to jump in a little bit about your journey. So why don't we kick things off sharing a little bit about your background and what inspired you to found Cutting Edge Sports Management?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's quite a story, but I'll keep it short. I was born in Brooklyn. My parents met there. My father came to the United States in 1965, met my mother. The rest is history. Stayed a few years, moved out to Long Island. Brooklyn people either go to Staten Island or Long Island, and we decided to go out east. And the growing up for me was interesting because despite the fact that my parents didn't have any education, really, that was very important to them. So I went to private school out there, college, law school, and kind of just knew that education was always going to be part of who I was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And how has the company's mission evolved since the inception of it?
The mission started as we wanted to do something for players that didn't have a platform.
Sure.
Right? So primarily the lower level D3 players, they're just as good as some of the D1 players, just didn't get the opportunity, bad breaks, something happened. And so our mission was always about that. How do we help somebody that needs the help, somebody that needs that platform, that visual for people to see? And our mission has always been about that. And so every year since, it's our 14th year, we've always tried to add to that. Just more, what else can we do for them? How else can we help them on their journey? So
That's awesome.
That's where it started.
14 years going strong. So can you talk us through the early days of launching the Dream Bowl and how you were able to grow that into a premier all-star game that it is today?
Yeah, it's a funny story. Year one, we didn't know what we were doing. Football in my house was a different type of ball, with my dad being from Italy. So I loved football, but I didn't know football. I didn't know the football player. I didn't know the fan. And so we just kind of started this because we saw a need for it. And the first year we had 37 players total for two teams. So you can imagine how crazy that was. Players were playing both sides of the ball. And what we found was that the idea, the concept worked because the players just had such a great time, even though they were working twice as hard and just kind of feeling their way through as we were. But it was football. And I found that the football player just loves to play football. And for them, it was their last chance to play in a college uniform. And so we knew we were doing something right. We just had to find more players.
Yeah.
And so we took our lessons, we learned from them, and just did something's a little bit better every year. And now in year 14, here we are playing at AT&T Stadium. So
That's awesome.
It's quite a journey from 37 players. Hopefully we could even have a game to now being where we are.
That's great. Congrats on the success there.
Thank you.
We talked about this a little bit earlier. You said that education's always been kind of a pillar of what you knew you wanted to do. And you have a very impressive academic background, both a JD and an MSA. How have those degrees really shaped your professional approach when it's come to sports management?
I think in sports management especially, there's this concept that you're always learning. And so having an educational background and teaching sport management and teaching sport leadership, it allows me to continue to learn. And then I could take not only my lessons from the business, but my lessons from my students, my lessons from the classroom, and apply them in a way that will help our business do better. And that's something I'm very fortunate about. The law degree allowed me to learn how to look at things from different perspectives and not see things in black and white. And the sport management degree is what gave me my start in my business, so I'm very grateful for that too.
That's awesome. Continuing on the topic of education, I know you helped create the first esports business degree program in New Jersey. What drove you to really be that pioneer in that space within higher education?
I was very lucky. I was very lucky in that regard because I had a president at our university, Caldwell University, where she brought us together and said, what's new? What's the next big thing? And I was already working in the esport industry at the time. And I said, I think this is the next big thing. And so she said, what is this? What is esports? And, after we got down to it, She said, let's take a shot. Let's run with it. And within a year from that conversation, we were able to launch the program. And
That's awesome.
I take credit only in the sense that I was part of it, but I wasn't, I had a wonderful team around us. And that continues at Caldwell today. We're always pioneering and thinking of new things to bring to the students on campus.
That's great. I know we talked about the Dream Bowl, but also the HBU Spirit of America Bowl is another one that you participated in and helped create. How have you built these innovative platforms that really serve that underrepresented athletes? And how do you continue to innovate and make sure those are front and center within the sports industry?
I've always had this belief that I've been very fortunate in my life. I had supportive parents. I grew up in a home where, we weren't overly comfortable, but we were comfortable, right? We
Sure.
didn't struggle, and so when I left that environment and saw what was going on in our society, I said, "There's got to be a way for me to help." And one of the things I love about sports management is this sports sociology piece. I believe, Jackie Robinson's the most influential athlete of all time. If Jackie Robinson didn't play baseball, I'm not sure we have the civil rights movement. We don't have what happened in the 70s with, the Olympics in 1968, Muhammad Ali, Kareem. So for me, he changed society for the better through sports. And we saw that with Title IX for women. And so I just thought sports is more than just what the scoreboard tells us. It can make an impact. It can make a difference. And so I said, where can I help? I can help with the HBCU community. I can help with underprivileged communities. I can help with those small school players getting their shot. I can help in the special needs community. So for me, it's always been about that.
Yeah.
Where can I find a community that needs help? And then I'm going to go and help.
That's awesome to hear. What leadership principles have helped guide you when you're working with these diverse stakeholders? Everyone from student athletes to sponsors to nonprofits within your portfolio.
It's quite a list. But I think the most important leadership aspect for me is self-accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I have to be the one to set that example. I can't ask somebody to do something if I'm not willing to do it myself. So every day I wake up and I'm saying to myself, how am I going to be accountable to me, to my team, to my organization, to my school, et cetera? So to me, it starts there. But leadership's about good communication. It's about strategic planning. It's about vision and thinking ahead. All of those principles. But it always comes back to the same thing. Am I being accountable to the people I need to be accountable to?
You got to lead by example.
Exactly.
Following the strategy conversation, I know you're a strategic consultant for startups, for nonprofits. How do you tailor the strategy when you're talking to all these different types of organizations?
Well, you find out what they're doing, right? And the most important thing in any conversation is understanding their mission. And then looking at it and saying, are they following the steps to meet their mission? A lot of companies have a mission. They have this very fancy, mission statement page, vision statement. And then you find out that everything they're doing has nothing to do with their mission or nothing to further it. So the first thing I do is figure that piece out. But the rest is relatively similar. It doesn't matter what company you're talking about. What are their values? What are their strategic goals? What are their objectives? What are their strategies? All of that stuff can be tailored to the specific company once you know what their mission is.
We talked about it earlier, obviously esports and being very innovative in the traditional sports realm. Where do you see the future of sports really going, and how do you feel your company will be a part of that future?
I think the world of sports is changing the same way our society is changing, right? We could look back in the early 1900s to the 1950s. We were an agricultural type country, and so the dominant sport was baseball. Then we became more urbanized. We had the Pittsburghs of the world, and then football became the big sport, right? Because that kind of fit our society. Now we're more technological, and so sports has to follow that. Otherwise, we're going to lose the people with the audience that we're trying to connect to. So I think the next thing that we're going to see is a lot more gamification of traditional sports. We see that a little bit. Disney will, ABC, ESPN will do a football game, and then on their Disney Channel, they have the players in cartoon form or something along those lines. Nickelodeon has done something like that too. So I think we have to figure out a way to connect to that audience, which has grown up now with their phones in their hand, with watching digital television, not typical cable anymore. So that's where I think the biggest change is, that concept of cord cutting, where
Yeah.
people don't have the cable box
So
anymore,
true.
right? I grew up that way, and I know that's not the case anymore. Most of my students will watch their sports on their phone.
Yeah.
So I think the traditional sports is seeing that, and you're starting to see changes, right? I think it was on Christmas Day, one of the games was the NFL games was on Netflix. One of the playoff games was broadcast, on a digital platform,
Yeah.
right? And so they know they have to do that if they're going to keep up with the younger
Yep.
audience.
They're cutting the cord, and they're also listening on audio.
That's right, and that's the other thing I was going to say is that, and in addition now, where people kept saying, "Oh, radio's dead," radio's not dead anymore because everybody's on their phone, and what they also have are those AirPods.
Yeah.
Everybody's you're
Every
talking.
single
You
person.
think you're talking to somebody and they're listening, but they're not. They have no idea what you're saying because
Yep.
they have those. So if we can get sports, live entertainment, audio based, we'll continue to connect with that
Yep.
audience.
More people are listening to the radio now than they were 20 years ago.
totally
So
agree. Yep.
definitely a good place to be for sports.
No question.
I know that over the last 14 years, there's probably been a lot of highs, but I'm sure there also have been challenges along the way. We
Sure.
talked about the first Dream Bowl, maybe not having enough players that were there, but out of every challenge probably comes lessons and little tidbits that you've been able to take away to make the company and yourself better. What was any challenge that really stood out to you that you were able to overcome and then be able to gain a very valuable lesson that you could share today?
Yeah, and that lesson comes from a philosophy of Vince Lombardi, who said, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And I really like that. I don't like the word lose. I like the word learn. And I use that with my students a lot. I think there's a challenge every year. I think for us, we're trying to plus the game. What can we do better? And so you learn from the little things that may not have gone well, whether
Sure.
it was scheduling a bus company and they weren't timely, so you have to find a better bus company. I remember one year we ordered our jerseys coming from overseas to save a little bit of money, and they were sent by DHL, which wasn't even in existence in the location, and they were sitting in a warehouse somewhere. And we were driving all around Virginia Beach looking for our jerseys. So you'll learn from your mistakes. You learn how to, I'll spend a little extra money and just make sure the shipping gets to where it needs to go. Little things like that is very important to us. Our game wasn't just about the players. It was also about the families.
Sure.
And so that celebration concept of their journey through football also. And so how do we make the game better for them? We don't want the parents coming and saying this wasn't what we expected. So we learn. We learn every year, and I've been very fortunate that whatever problems we've had haven't been debilitating enough to knock us completely off track. One big problem we had. Why we're in Texas now instead of Virginia, there was a nor'easter that came through Virginia. And our game was usually on Martin Luther King Monday. We had to move it to Saturday because the storm was coming Sunday, and it was just chaos. And
Can't control that, though.
no, we can't. And we managed through
Yeah.
it. But right after that, we started making calls down south to find a better, little warmer location, a
Yeah,
little
makes
less
sense.
challenging with the snow. And that's how come we wound up in Texas. But other than that, that was probably our biggest challenge of just trying to move the referees,
Yeah.
the stadium, and
It's not
but
an easy task.
no, it wasn't. But again, I've been very lucky. I've had good people around to help over the years.
That's great.
Yeah.
We touched on this very, very briefly earlier, but can you tell us a little bit more about your work with the special needs community? I'm sure it's very rewarding, and some of the lessons you've been able to learn from them.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes things just happen. I was teaching a course, my sport management courses, and I received an email from our school saying, we have a student that's in a wheelchair. Is it okay if the student takes the course? And I said, of course. And I wasn't thinking of it, of the wheelchair, of the special need. I just thought it was just somebody that may have
Yeah.
had an injured leg or something. And so they asked if I could meet with the student. His name was Patrick Falco, and I met with him over the summer and started to get him ready, and I realized this was going to be a challenge in a good way.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get complacent. Sometimes you can kind of go through the motions, and I had to change a little bit of how I taught because Patrick had certain things, the inability to speak. He used his phone to communicate, and so we had to slow things down, and we had to give Patrick time to prepare his responses. And it started getting me to think there's a lot of Patricks out there. There's a lot of people that need help. And that's kind of where I transition more on the special needs side. I sit on a board of a special needs nonprofit in New Jersey, and I just started a company where we're bringing special needs families to sporting events.
That's awesome.
Minor league baseball games. We went to a Jets game last year. Rutgers football has invited us this year. So we're just trying to find ways to engage the special needs community through something I'm very passionate about,
Yeah.
which is sports.
Love that.
And most people have some kind of connection to sports. And as I mentioned earlier, sports is such a great social vehicle
Yeah.
that it allows them to come out and enjoy themselves. I get more pleasure at a minor league baseball game where we have the whole, special needs section filled with people in their wheelchairs with their guides and their caretakers, just enjoying a nice evening the same way we do it, and we don't really think about it. We don't necessarily appreciate it as much. For them, it's one of their favorite nights of the year, and
That's
so
awesome.
for us, we feel good about things like
Yeah.
that.
I'm sure that's super rewarding, but even more impactful for all the families and the individuals that you're impacting.
Just to give them a night where they can do something with the rest of us, where they just feel they're part of that bigger community. What's one thing that I've noticed being on that nonprofit is that sometimes there's an isolation factor, and so giving them social activities to do is something they look forward to.
Yeah. I love your perspective on how you're able to fit sports into so many different realms, right? It's more than just the game, but just the different communities you could help, the different relationships and stories you could learn from it. For anyone that's tuning in that might explore a profession within sports or a future in sports, what advice would you give them?
It's the same advice I was given a long time ago, and that's just to read. Just read as much as you can. I know it's an ancient thing now, right? Nobody wants to read. Nobody wants to hold a book. I'm still old school. I like to hold books as I'm reading them. You just have to read, and I don't care exactly what they're reading. It could be a comic book for all I care, but just read. You just get smarter. Every time you read a book, you get smarter, in my opinion. And read biographies on people. Read about leadership from a sports perspective. There's so many coaches and players that have written books on how to be a leader that
Definitely.
it could almost go out of your mind, but the concepts are all the same. Pick your favorite player, read something about that player. So my first advice is that. My second advice is a very challenging one, and that's the ability to communicate verbally.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in a world post-COVID where the students in that era, that time frame, did not speak very well. Children born at that time, we're seeing the studies now that they're not communicative. So they have to go out and speak. They have to be public facing, which again is a challenge for them. I think Jerry Seinfeld said that the biggest fear we have in life is speaking in public. The second biggest fear is dying, right? And so we'd rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy, right? And so I think that's a very big part of sports management, especially. It's all about communication. I'm on the
100%.
phone. I'm in meetings, whether I'm teaching, whatever it is. It's always about communication, and people will know if you're intelligent, if you're talking about stuff that makes sense. I think it comes from reading and just exploring and challenging yourself. And I do that with my students. Beginning of every class, I ask them, what's new in the world of sports? And they have to find an article or a story to talk about. And then the third piece of advice is never stop learning. I think that's the third most important piece to me, is that the learning never stops. For me, for my students, something very rewarding to me is getting an email from a student that graduated 5 years ago. Hey, I just saw this article. I think you'd like it. So
That's awesome.
that kind of stuff is important. And then, if I was to close on that sport management piece, is going out and doing the stuff, right? Not just reading about it, not just studying it, but actually working.
Yep.
Stephen Covey said to learn and not to do is really not to learn. And I totally agree with that. We met at a Jets event.
Yep.
The Caldwell University is partners with the Jets. And one of the great things that we have from that partnership is we get to teach a course, an experiential learning course with the Jets. And in January, they came to us with a project, and our elite students worked on it and presented our solutions, our suggestions, our recommendations to the Jets team at the end of the semester.
That's awesome.
So they're learning sport management, they're learning leadership, and they're also doing.
They're getting that real life experience too.
That's so critical, definitely.
That's awesome. Great advice. So 14 years strong. What's next? What is next for Cutting Edge Sports Management?
Well, the name Cutting Edge tells us that we have to stay relevant. We have to continue to plus. We have to continue to grow. So we're moving into more of a media company now. We've created a Dream Big Sports Media, and that's going to involve a lot more than just Instagram and that stuff. So we're developing a podcast and hoping to launch in September. We partnered with a documentary company that's going to
Very cool.
do a documentary in real time, starting in August with now when practices start, all the way up to game day. So trying to make more media, more content.
Sure.
They say content is king, so we're going to try to meet that mission, and that's really our next big step. And again, with the game at AT&T, it's like reinventing the Dream Bowl all over again for us. So we're just excited about talking to new partners and creating this fan fest we're going to do before the game this year, and just a lot of fun, exciting pieces. But the big thing for us is, as we've talked about, is staying relevant on the media side.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Lots to look forward to.
Yes.
So we covered a lot.
Yes.
Is there anything you feel like we might have missed that you want everyone to know about?
Just again, for me, if there's anything that I want to share, and hopefully it's come across a little bit here, is this philosophy of doing good while doing well. I think that's a very important philosophy of mine. Is make as much money as you want, do as well as you can, but do some good while you're at it. And if you could do that, if you can make your money while doing good, then you've really won the game, in my opinion. So
absolutely,
that's my biggest takeaway.
If anyone that's listening wants to learn more about the Dream Bowl or one of the other initiatives and projects you're working on, what should they do?
They can reach out to me at Neil Malvone at dreambowl.net. They can also follow us on Instagram at Dream Bowl Football. They can also find me almost anywhere. Really, my email's always on. My phone's always on. My email's always being checked. So they can certainly track me down without any difficulty.
That's awesome. Neil, thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Really enjoyed hearing your story. It is very inherent that your passion for sports, your passion for doing good comes out. So thank you for all the amazing work you've been doing, and looking forward to continuing to see you do good.
Well, I appreciate the invite. I was surprised to get it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on what we're doing, and I hope we get to see each other again someday.
Absolutely. Thanks
Fantastic.
again.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody for tuning in. Tune in next week for next week's edition of CEOs You Should Know.